The penthouse was sold in just 12 minutes. Emirates has reported record passenger volumes. Construction cranes now dominate nearly every skyline. Dubai's population has reached 4.2 million this month, the fastest rate of growth in the city's history. And yet, behind this remarkable expansion, a more troubling question emerges. Why are entire WhatsApp groups of expatriate families quietly organizing their departure? This is not the story of an economic downturn. It is, rather, the story of a systematic repricing, one that has rendered the so-called Dubai dream mathematically unviable for the very people who built it. Before we go any further, it's worth understanding what is truly unfolding beneath the surface. Behind the polished headlines and record-breaking figures lies an untold reality, a silent exodus. The very middle-class expatriates who powered Dubai's rise are now leaving, not in protest, but in quiet coordination. While official narratives celebrate growth, thousands of families are discreetly planning their exit through private WhatsApp groups and Facebook forums. These are not isolated incidents. We have observed digital communities where teachers, healthcare professionals, and mid-level managers exchange relocation plans, shipping costs, and job opportunities abroad, often in more affordable destinations. One such group, titled Dubai Exit Plan 2025, has expanded from just 80 members to over 3,000 in a matter of 6 months. What we are witnessing is not anecdotal, it is structural. The numbers, when examined closely, tell a story that diverges sharply from the official line. To understand the present situation, one must first recall what made Dubai so attractive in the first place. For nearly 2 decades, the emirate offered a compelling proposition: tax-free income, access to affordable luxury, and global career opportunities within a stable, cosmopolitan environment. Between 2010 and 2020, Dubai enjoyed what can reasonably be described as its golden era for middle-class expatriates. A teacher earning around $4,000 a month could afford a 2-bedroom flat in Dubai Marina, maintain a car, and still enjoy a social life, weekend brunches, leisure activities, and travel. Engineers and accountants with families could provide international education for their children while setting money aside for the future. The social infrastructure was equally significant. International schools functioned not only as centers of education, but as community hubs. Families from across the globe interacted, forming a diverse and cohesive social fabric. Areas such as the Greens, Jelt and Discovery Gardens became genuine melting pots, home to Filipino healthcare workers, British educators, and Indian IT professionals alike. This was Dubai's unique appeal, a global village offering an upper-middle-class lifestyle that was often unattainable in expatriates' home countries. However, that equilibrium began to unravel in 2022. As the world emerged from pandemic restrictions, Dubai repositioned itself as a destination for remote workers and high-net-worth individuals. The resulting influx of wealth triggered a profound shift in the cost structure of the city. Rental prices surged almost overnight. Increases of 40 to 50% became commonplace. Properties in Jelt that rented for 60,000 dirhams annually in 2021 were commanding 90,000 by mid-2022. Landlords, operating within a 20% annual cap, strategically delayed renewals to impose the maximum permissible hikes. At the same time, school fees escalated sharply. Annual increases of 15 to 20% became routine, placing international education beyond the reach of many. A British curriculum school that charged 45,000 dirhams in 2019 now demands closer to 70,000, all while salaries have largely remained static. This is where the central paradox emerges. As Dubai's property market boomed and tourism flourished, the very workforce enabling that success found themselves priced out. Employers cited market conditions to justify salary freezes even as corporate profits reached record highs. The disconnect is not merely anecdotal, it is mathematical. According to Mercer's 2024 Cost of Living Index, Dubai now ranks as the 15th most expensive city globally, having climbed 23 places in just 3 years. It now surpasses cities such as London, Los Angeles, and Amsterdam, but without offering comparable wage structures. Housing costs, in particular, have become unsustainable. A one-bedroom apartment in a mid-tier area like Business Bay now averages around 90,000 dirhams annually. For many teachers, this consumes nearly 60% of their post-tax income, double the 30% threshold widely recommended by financial experts. Meanwhile, salary stagnation has become the norm. Data across 5 major sectors indicates that 63% of mid-level professionals received no salary increase in 2024, despite inflation standing at 7.2%. In real terms, the decline is stark. A monthly salary of $5,000 in 2020 would need to rise to approximately $7,800 today to maintain the same purchasing power. That gap, nearly $2,800, has simply not been addressed. Education costs present an equally stark challenge. The average annual fee for a single child in early years education now stands at 65,000 dirhams, with premium institutions charging significantly more. For families with 2 children, schooling alone can absorb an entire income. The broader conclusion is unavoidable. The financial model underpinning middle-class life in Dubai has fundamentally shifted. In 2019, a family of 4 could sustain a comfortable lifestyle on 30,000 dirhams per month. Today, that same standard requires at least 50,000, an increase of 67%, far outpacing wage growth. This is not a natural market adjustment. It is the result of deliberate policy direction. Dubai has pivoted decisively towards the ultra-luxury segment, and in doing so, has effectively sidelined the middle class. Property development trends illustrate this clearly. Since 2022, approximately 78% of new residential projects have targeted the luxury market, with entry-level one-bedroom units starting at 1.5 million dirhams. Affordable housing, while discussed, accounts for less than 5% of new supply. Compounding the issue is the structure of the visa system. Residency remains tied to employment, leaving workers with limited bargaining power. To demand higher wages is to risk not only one's job, but also one's legal right to remain in the country. The result is a constrained workforce, unable to respond to rising living costs. At the same time, the infrastructure that once supported middle-class life is eroding. Affordable dining options are being replaced by premium establishments. Community retail is shifting towards luxury brands. Even healthcare institutions are losing experienced staff, many of whom can no longer afford to live in the city they serve. Taken together, these developments point to a broader transformation, one that raises serious questions about sustainability, balance, and who ultimately Dubai is being built for. Regional competition has now intensified the strain. Saudi Arabia's Vision 2030 program, alongside Qatar's post-World Cup expansion, is actively drawing from Dubai's established talent pool, offering packages that crucially reintroduce housing allowances that many Dubai employers have quietly withdrawn. But behind these macroeconomic shifts are deeply personal consequences. Consider the case of the Wilson family, British expatriates who spent 8 years in Dubai Marina. James, an engineering manager, and Sarah, a primary school teacher, had built what many would recognize as the archetypal expatriate life. Their children were enrolled in British curriculum schools, their finances were stable, and they were even able to save for future university costs. That stability, however, began to erode rapidly. A 35% rent increase in 2023 forced the family to make immediate sacrifices, beginning with the cancellation of holidays. When school fees rose by a further 20%, they were compelled to draw down their savings. The decisive moment came when both employers confirmed there would be no salary adjustments for a third consecutive year. At that point, the financial equation no longer held. The family has since relocated to Singapore, where structured housing support has restored a degree of financial viability. A similar pattern emerges in the case of Raj, an Indian IT manager with over a decade of experience in Dubai. His work contributed directly to the digital backbone of several high-profile developments. Yet even with that expertise, he was confronted with a stark choice: maintain his family's housing or continue his children's education within the city. The figures simply did not reconcile. With 72% of his income consumed by housing and schooling alone, Raj opted to relocate his family to Toronto. He accepted a 15% reduction in salary, but gained access to affordable education and, importantly, a pathway to permanent residency. These are not isolated accounts, they are representative. Across Dubai's expatriate workforce, similar decisions are being made daily. Amelia, a Filipino nurse with 12 years of critical care experience, found herself sharing a bedroom with two colleagues after being priced out of her own accommodation. Despite her frontline role during the pandemic, her salary of 8,500 dirhams has failed to keep pace with the city's rising costs. This gradual but persistent departure of skilled professionals carries serious long-term implications. The loss of experienced teachers, healthcare workers, and mid-level managers is creating a vacuum of institutional knowledge, one that cannot easily be replaced. Schools are already reporting teacher turnover rates exceeding 40% annually, with seasoned educators increasingly replaced by less experienced staff willing to accept diminished conditions. The healthcare sector is facing comparable pressures. Medical directors report growing difficulty in filling specialist roles, while one private network has seen 28% of its nursing staff leave within a single quarter. Housing affordability cited as the principal reason. At a broader level, the social fabric that once defined Dubai is beginning to fray. Communities that took decades to establish are now dissolving. International schools are experiencing mid-year withdrawal rates of between 15 and 20%, disrupting continuity in education. The cosmopolitan middle class, once central to Dubai's identity, is gradually being replaced by a more transient workforce and a concentration of ultra-wealthy residents with limited long-term community engagement. There is a growing risk that Dubai may follow a trajectory similar to Monaco, evolving into a high-end enclave for the global elite, increasingly detached from the everyday realities of those who sustain its infrastructure. Without meaningful intervention, this Monaco effect becomes more than a theoretical concern. It points towards a hollowing out of the urban core, where essential workers are forced to commute from distant, more affordable regions to serve a population that is economically and socially removed from them. Notably, this is not an isolated phenomenon. Early indicators suggest that similar pressures are beginning to emerge across the Gulf. Both Qatar and Saudi Arabia, in their pursuit of global prominence, are showing signs of placing comparable strain on their middle-income populations. This leads to a fundamental question, one that policymakers can no longer afford to overlook. Who, ultimately, will staff the schools, hospitals, and businesses that underpin these societies if the cost of living consistently exceeds what those workers can reasonably earn? The Dubai dream, it must be said, is not entirely extinguished. But it has been significantly recalibrated. The more pressing issue now is this: who does that dream still serve, and who, in the process, has been quietly excluded from its new economic reality?